Hello, everyone. It's Chris. This week is my birthday, so we decided to take the week off. It's also 4th of July, so we haven't done shit. Anyways, here is a recent episode that we uploaded up to Patreon. It is me and Rick from Pixel Project Radio. We are talking to the moon for like 20 minutes, and then the rest of the episode, we just talk about RPGs and how great video games are. So give us a listen. It's a pretty good episode. It's very fun. Hope you enjoy. Hello, hello! Welcome to a Novel Console, a special episode about games and stuff. I still need to figure out what type of intro to make for this. Hey, today we're talking about To the Moon, and I have a very special guest with me. I have Rick from Pixel Project Radio joining us to talk about To the Moon. How are you doing, Rick?
Hey man, I'm doing really well. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here and excited to talk about this game that made me feel a lot of things.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. It did make me feel a lot of things too, particularly one scene. And my wife was sitting next to me. And she's like, "What's wrong with you?" I'm like, I don't know. It was great. So we're talking To the Moon today, just straight from Wikipedia because I'm lazy and I'm not doing any research for these. To the Moon is a psychological drama adventure game developed and published by Freebird Games. It was originally released on Windows in November 2011, with ports being released for Mac OS, Linux, Android, and Switch. It was done using the RPG Maker XP toolkit, which explains why it looks like an RPG. So, Rick, tell me, you're a big RPG pixel style fan?
I really am. I've always been an RPG guy. Some of the earliest memories I have playing video games are with JRPGs. I mean, growing up, Pokemon was ubiquitous. It was everywhere. It was insane. And that was right when Red and Blue and then Gold and Silver came out. And then right after that, I had discovered Final Fantasy and played Final Fantasy 9 and 7 and 8. So from the beginning, I've always been about that. And then in recent years, I've gotten much more heavily into retro gaming. So this presentation and just how this game presents itself is just terrific to me. And it helps that the writing is really good, the music's really good. But yeah, I really dug this aesthetic. It was really cool.
How long ago did you play this game?
Oh, geez. I want to say it was the end of 2022, somewhere between like September and December of 22, I want to say.
Okay, so not too long ago then.
No, not too long ago.
Okay. Yeah, I just played this game yesterday. Started it and finished it yesterday. I started around 8 p.m., finished it around 1, which is it's fine because I had to get up at 3 in the morning to take a friend to the airport, so I just stayed up till 3.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, so I'm running on like 6 hours of sleep, which is normal, which I was hoping I could have gotten that done earlier so I could have gotten more sleep, but life and stuff. But yeah, no, this game looks fantastic. And to be honest, I had no idea what I was going into when I started it. I had seen somewhere that it was an RPG about building a rocket and going to the moon. So I was like, okay, I have no idea how they're going to make it so that we fight stuff and get parts, but it's also in a modern setting. I had no idea that it was an adventure where you delve into somebody's mind and alter things in their head so that they believe that they went to the moon before they die.
Yeah. What a weird and well, maybe weird's not the right word. What an interesting concept that is, right? Like end of life care being such that you can almost trick somebody into believing their life was better than what it was. I had a lot of ethical questions after I played this for the first time.
See, my thoughts after I finished it were, okay, where's the next one? And I went straight into the Switch store and I'm like, I need another one, but there aren't any more apparently. just the one.
I think they released some DLC episodes, but I don't think I've played them.
Okay. I'm gonna look into those, see if I can find them anywhere, because if the writing is as solid and the characters are as interesting and as I don't want to say normal, because nobody's normal in that world. Everybody's quirky. If they're as, I want to say, real in the DLC as they are in the main game, that I think I would really enjoy another playthrough of a different story, or you know.
I was just gonna say that's one of the game's biggest strengths. I think is the writing is really good. The people seem like real people, right? They don't feel like video game characters to me. Like I feel like I know Dr. Neil in real life.
Yeah, Neil is. I feel like I work with a couple of Neils, so. And I really did appreciate a lot that they had a bunch of pop culture things in the references, name dropping, however you want to call it, all over in the game. They talked about Animorphs. Apparently, that played a big part into it. Every time that you would break a memento with Neil, he would either do a Hadouken or a Kamehameha, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I really did appreciate that it didn't go, let's do video gamey stuff, or let's drag in like real world stuff like Google too. So I really did enjoy that. Like it felt even more real, but it felt also kind of jarring because you're not used to playing a video game and have somebody name drop Coca-Cola.
Right. Right. Exactly.
Let's see. There were a bunch of things in the game that I really liked. I liked that as you were going back through John's memories, the important people were, the older he was, the less he remembered them. They were hazier. Like when he was getting married, he barely remembered his mom. But then when you go back to being a kid, his mom is pretty much all fleshed out. She's a little bit hazy, but not as hazy as she was when they got married. And all the people around that he remembered being there, but didn't remember the faces. I know one of the characters, Eva, makes a comment about wishing that he remembered the faces so that the places where they go to would seem more alive and real.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting too how when you're going into the memories, you're kind of doing them backwards, right? You're going from the more recent ones all the way back to childhood.
Yeah. And it also, they do make the comment at one point where they're going back through time and they see something happen that's happy, and then they're like, oh wait, but this goes to shit eventually.
Yeah, yeah, it's the whole game is just really bittersweet. Like everything about it, even the happy moments, you're always reminded that, well, this isn't real, right? Or like you said, or this is going to go to shit eventually, as nice as it is now. It's a very bittersweet game.
It is. So I just want to have you go off, tell me favorite moments, favorite characters, just floor's yours, man.
Oh, geez. I mean, I loved all of the characters. There's not a character in this game that I didn't like. I thought they were all really well realized. The writing is really good. Their interactions are all really good. If you see my lights flickering, I think a storm is starting. Just in case you catch that. Hopefully it doesn't shut everything down. But favorite moments, geez. How much into spoilers do you want to get into? Or
I mean, people have to pay to listen to this, and unless eventually, well, it's coming out on regular feed a few weeks after it goes on Patreon, so they either have to pay for it or listen at their own risk. I'm gonna put like a spoiler and everything on it, so you spoil the whole thing if you want.
Gotcha. I mean, it's really tough to pick something that's not just the ending for me. I mean, it's such a culmination of everything, and seeing the rocket launch like up to the moon it just made the whole game for me. This isn't really a scene, but like I really liked how into Animorphs the one character was, because as a kid I read every one of those books. I would pick up an Animorphs book at like every school scholastic book fair, Like that was what I would go to. I loved those as a kid, and it was so cool that they were like important in the game. That was very cool. There is another scene too. I am struggling to think of it.
So,
There are so many.
well, you think of it. There was a part in the game where one of the characters is like, "Oh, my favorite is David, but I don't know what his ultimate animal is," and you have to enter the exact name of the animal, which was Cobra. But everywhere online, people are mad because it wasn't a cobra; it was a lion, I think. So everything was telling me type in lion, so I typed in lion, and it was always wrong until I found out by another comment saying, "What the fuck do they mean? It's not a lion. How the fuck do you get cobra from this dude?" Like what? But there was another part that you could go talk to another NPC, and they would tell you that his animal was the cobra.
Ah, gotcha.
Yeah, that part, man, I thought I had broken the game or something because I kept putting it to sleep to go do other stuff and come back to it because my wife had me doing stuff last night. But the scene that stands out the most to me was when they're at the fair and
Yeah.
John meets River for the first time. A lot of things made sense at that moment. Uh, why she kept asking John every time that she gave him a rabbit, "What do you see?"
Yeah.
That point, I was like, "Oh, okay, this makes sense." And then why he wanted to go to the moon so bad while he was dying is because he had promised her that even if he doesn't find her next year, that they can just meet by going to the moon. That part was heavy.
Yeah, the reveal of all of, well, not all of, I because I like that River is portrayed as being on the autism spectrum in a realistic way, in a way that's not like token, like they're not like, oh, look at our, this is our autistic character, like they don't do that, which is great. But yeah, that reveal of some of River's quirks towards Johnny. Oh man. Oh man, because I remember in the beginning, I can't remember which character, but one of the characters made a comment that made it seem like, oh, these River's quirks are annoying. And at first you're kind of like, yeah, I get kind of like, why is there so many origami rabbits? Like, what's the deal? And then when you figure it out, it's like, oh my god.
Like she was reaching out towards John in basically the way that she knew that she thought that it would work the most by making these rabbits, and John just didn't get it at all, and it was thinking back on it, it's pretty tough to watch. But also John was given beta blockers as a kid when his brother got killed.
Yeah, yeah, and that becomes that's like one of the hurdles as you're going back through there is those beta blockers are like repressing his memory a bit. I don't really know much about beta blockers. Is that how it works?
No idea. I think that's just video game science.
Okay. Yeah, I mean that makes sense. It wasn't something that jumped out at me, but I did find myself thinking afterwards like, I've never taken them. So does this happen? I don't know.
Maybe also, if you were to take grape Fanta and mix it with under the sink rum, you would pretty much get a beta blocker because you're not going to remember anything after drinking that shit.
Under the sink rum.
Under the sink rum, dude. I had this buddy back in high school who would bring in rum to school that his dad would make at home, and he would have it age under the sink, like in bottles, like in the cabinet under the sink. And I swear to God, dude, just one can of Fanta with half of one of those little bottles of rum, and we were all fucked up.
Oh my god. That sounds dangerous.
Yeah, it was. It was. Good thing we cut a lot of classes, so we would just hang out in the hallway, just being drunk. High school was a mess, man. So back to the game. There was also another character, Isabel, who was also autistic, and she said that it was easy for her to mask because she had been an actress her entire life, and River hadn't been able to learn how to cope because she made the comment that either she wasn't able to or she didn't want to. I felt like that scene was a little bit antagonistic towards River as a character.
Yeah, I'm trying to think back to it. I know the scene that you're talking about. It's been a minute, and I had almost forgotten about it, to be honest. Um, yeah, I'm not sure. Were they trying to imply that River might have had man, I don't know how to word this properly. I don't want to say a more severe case because that also sounds kind of bad, but were they implying that Rivers being on the spectrum, she was farther on the spectrum than Isabella?
Could be, could be, but also the way that part was written was her saying that she didn't recognize who she was whenever she was masking because she had gotten so used to it. I don't even know where I'm going with this. I just found that interesting and like it felt like people were not as fond of River um, because of how she acted.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if that wasn't intentional because unfortunately, that's a lot of people feel that way towards folks with special needs, folks that are on the autism spectrum, things like that. They get annoyed at them, even though I mean, they're not doing anything wrong, and that's heartbreaking. Uh,
Yeah.
so I wonder if that wasn't intentional. I don't know.
Now, the going back to the scene when they were kids under the moonlight and under the tree at the carnival, John gave River the platypus that she's carrying around the entire game. Pretty much every scene she's in, she has the platypus with her, and it's one of the items that you get at the beginning of the game, which I thought was going to be important, but no, it just occupies an inventory space. That man, like I tell you, like they did such a great job just with the pacing and building the entire story where when things click, they click hard.
Yeah, yeah, it's really paced extremely well, and they don't pull any punches. I mean, it's only like you said, you started at 8 and finished at 1. It's a 5-hour game, and in that 5 hours, you feel more than you have any right to. Like any other game, 5 hours into it, I mean, what you're gonna get the tutorial and maybe some of the exposition, but this is just so succinct and packaged and just a great experience. I like to recommend this one. I don't get too often because I don't find myself in this situation often, but like folks that don't play video games, when they're like, oh, I kind of want to try, like, what should I play? This is a great one. It's 5 hours. I mean, you don't need to do any kind of crazy controls. Like, you don't need to quote unquote get good. It's just a good story,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. It's just and it's an easy playthrough as well. Like I feel like if my wife were to sit down and actually try to play this game, she would enjoy it. There were a couple of things that I was annoyed with, specifically having to find the little orbs so you can break the barrier around the memento. There were a couple that I spent 5 minutes clicking on everything around the map just to find it. And some of the conversations that you could have with other NPCs, if they were next to another NPC that you could talk to, the the you wouldn't always talk to the one that you were meaning to. So if you were looking at one on the left, you might accidentally start talking to the one on the right. But that's just me being nitpicky about it. I had an excellent time with the game. There was a fake out at the beginning that I was like, oh, this is how it's an RPG. You fight squirrels or animals. No, they stopped that real quick.
Yeah, I forgot all about that little mini turn-based fight. That was cute. I thought that was a nice touch. But yeah, I'm glad that they didn't try to make that a thing.
Yeah. So it was like super kick, fireball, something else, and at the end it was like shoe. And then when you selected one of them, it was like loud, louder, loudest in all caps. I found that so funny. The game does have its kind of funny moments, namely the moments with the kids, just being kids. It's pretty good.
Yeah, yeah, and all of the pop culture references like we talked about a little earlier. I mean, we mentioned the Hadoken and the Dragon Ball Z thing, but like I think there's a How I Met Your Mother reference in there. They mentioned Zordon,
Yep.
Morpheus. Like there's just so much.
Yeah, he does mention Sordon when they walk into NASA, because NASA's a thing here,
Yeah, yeah, you get to go to NASA. First time in any video game that I've ever gone to NASA.
and like that. Yeah, I can. Yeah, that's true. Like the thing is, you were in NASA, but isn't NASA like in Texas and Cape Canaveral here in Florida?
Oh, dude, you're asking the wrong person. Let me Google where is NASA.
Good.
It looks like the headquarters are in DC.
Really?
Oh, and then 10 field centers.
Let me see. Where does NASA launch rockets from? Hopefully this Cape Canaveral or Kennedy Space Center. Yeah. So by real world logic, right? They were shooting the rocket from Cape Canaveral, but for some reason, Golden Gate Bridge was there too. So I love whenever they have like Florida stuff in movies or video games and they get it completely wrong because I find it to be so funny. Like this game there was a movie I watched not too long ago that did it and it was fucking terrible. And I had a riot of a good time with that.
Yeah,
no,
it's funny. I live in, well, not in, but I live near Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and like when I think of Pittsburgh in games, the first thing I always think of is Fallout,
the pit.
right? Like Fallout 3, the pit, and like that's, it's not exactly how Pittsburgh's like in real life.
You mean there's not fleshy abominations running all over the place?
I think didn't they isn't Pittsburgh in The Last of Us in one of those as well?
Maybe.
I've never actually played or seen The Last of Us on HBO or PlayStation, so I'm not sure.
See, I played the original. I played the remake. Hated both equally. So I didn't watch the TV show, but I think the Pittsburgh thing was from the TV show, if I'm not mistaken. Anyways, we're not. I'm glad to meet another not Last of Us person.
It's not that I don't like it. I've played through the first like what hour, like to get through that opening cinematic and then a little bit past it. I thought it was fine. I just haven't had the time to actually sit down and play it.
See, so this is probably just going to turn into a Last of Us thing right now, episode or whatever. I am going to say I absolutely hated the original. The remake does a lot of things to fix a lot of the things that I hated from the original. So I think it's worth a playthrough. If not for the story, then just for the gameplay, because I think that the gameplay is somewhat fun. So if you can manage to get like a cheap copy of it, I would say pull the trigger on it and just go through it that way. But yeah, no, it's one of those you have to play it even if you love it or hate it, and you know.
I am feeling a bit of FOMO, what with the HBO series going on, because most folks that I've talked to have said, like, you could watch it first, you could play it first, it doesn't matter. But enough people have said you should play it first that I just said, okay, like, I'm not going to watch the HBO series until I play the game. But I really want to see the HBO series because, I mean, Pedro Pascal is great and Nick Offerman, all-time great. And HBO is just always putting out really good stuff. So
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I'd love to see it by the end of the year, but I don't know if that'll happen.
I mean, honestly, I think Neil Druckmann said that the HBO show is the real canon, so that might as well.
Oh, wow.
I think I might be mistaken because I feel like I'm running on like 2 hours of sleep for for the whole week, so my brain is like mush and smooth at the same time. But yeah, no, my wife is like, "Oh, can we watch it?" Because her mom was telling her that we should watch it because my wife can't handle gore, but the gore in the show is like not either not very graphic or it's done in a way where the gore is happening behind the characters and everything that's happening. So you know it's happening, but you can't really see it.
Yeah, yeah.
So my wife is like, "Oh, maybe we should watch it." I'm like, maybe. I don't think so, but maybe.
Yeah, speaking of zombies, the RE4 remake came out recently. That's another series that I don't really have. I don't mean to take so much away from To the Moon, but
No,
I mean,
I think we're done with saying everything to the moon. So if we can just talk shit for like 40 minutes, I'm cool with that.
yeah, man. I mean, yeah. You mentioned tangents are cool, but
Yeah.
yeah, Resident Evil. That's another series that I haven't really got into, but I think I'm gonna play 7 for the show at some point, and I'm looking forward to that. And then Village right after that. So
I haven't played 7. I have been told by a lot of people that I should, especially since I loved Village so much. But Village also feels like a rethread of 4.
oh, interesting.
Before the 4 remake. It hits a lot of notes and there's a lot of visual similarities to it, which 4 is my favorite from the series. So just having more of that, I'm cool with. And 4 remake, holy shit, dude, what a game!
Yeah, I've heard it's incredible.
You've never played a Resident Evil game?
Not a single one, because for years I was under the assumption of like, you know, you had to start from the beginning and go through all of them. And then there's spin-offs like Code Veronica and there's remakes and where do they all fit in? It wasn't until recently that somebody was like, "No, like if first of all, you could start anywhere and you'll figure it out pretty easily." But somebody told me that like, Resident Evils 1 through 3, that's like a little thing, that's the classics. 4 is where it starts to get a little bit crazy. That's its own thing. And then 7 starts its own thing with Village. So now that I know that they're like bite-sized like that, yeah, I'm going to jump in for sure. Before I was a little put off because I was intimidated to start at 1, go to 2, 3, 4, 5, like all of them.
So I was talking to Keith from Main Quest few weeks ago. I think this is like the 5th time I've mentioned this on an episode. But he told me that Capcom decided to have the remakes be the canon, and the remakes are really easy to get into. They are Resident Evil 4 gameplay. They do have, the little puzzle systems and whatnot, and they're super easy. They've streamlined it so that if you have an item that you can only use a certain amount of times and then you don't need it anymore, it checks it off once you don't need it anymore. So you don't have to carry it with you the entire time, which was a problem that the originals had. I had played 0, 1, 2, and 3 back on the GameCube and hated them. And now that the remakes are a thing, I love them. But it's because tank controls, it doesn't point you in the right direction. It's like figure it out as you go. The originals, they're not terrible. They weren't just for me. So
Yeah, that's fair. Are you generally, like when it comes to games, are you generally an original person or a remake person?
oh man, that's a good question. Shit. If I have played the original and I have a soft spot for it, then I'll stick with that. But if the remake is just as good or even better, then I'll love that one too. It's like it's like with the 4 remake. 4 is one of my favorite games of all time, and remake is 4 but a million times better. So I usually play 4 once a year. And I'm probably still gonna play 4 once a year, but I feel like I love them both equally. That's an example. 'Cause, yeah.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I like, games that get remade like that. there's got to be a reason, and I always want to know that reason. So I like playing the originals a lot.
Yep. I mean, using 4 as an example, there are a lot of things in the original game that could have used tweaking. I mean, the game is 15 years old. It's from the GameCube era where we were still figuring out how to do 3D platforming and camera controls and all that. So it getting a remake, even though it kind of feels unnecessary, it was necessary.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So what about you? Are you a remake or a originals person?
I don't know. I want to say I tend to prefer the originals, but on a lot of these games that are like remade or remastered, like I just played Shadow of the Colossus, and I mean, just speaking visually, because most of it's the same otherwise, but visually, it's a huge upgrade from the PS2. So like remake all the way for sure. Persona 5 Royal versus Persona 5. Yeah, play Royal. There's no reason to play vanilla anymore. Final Fantasy 9, one of my favorite games of all time. The original PS1 hardware version of that is really tough because of how slow everything is. The Maguri mod on PC makes it way better and amazing. But all that said, I don't know. Like I really like originals. I really like retro games. I'm not a big person that believes that graphic fidelity and like quote unquote good graphics is so necessary to everything. So even if like with those examples, even if the remakes and remasters are objectively better, I'm still gonna try and play the original, just because, you know.
Yeah, yeah, at least just for the experience. Um, you said that you like to play the original. Do you prefer to play it in a modern console, or do you want to play it on original hardware?
That's a good question, because for a long time I would just emulate on my laptop or on my PC. Then I got into handheld emulators like the Miu Mini and Anbernic, Retroid Pocket, and I like those a lot. I still have a couple of them, but starting on my last birthday on December 30th of 2022, I went into a local retro store because I didn't know my area had one, and I found it and I was like, oh, that's cool. And they had a Sega Saturn in box, which is like, wow.
Yeah.
So I bought it on the spot.
How much did that set you back? Like $800?
It wasn't too bad. It was like 150.
Oh, really?
Not crazy. Yeah,
Damn.
not too bad.
Damn, that's good.
And Saturn's a tough system to emulate, so that's why I bought it. And then I was just like, collecting these retro consoles and games and playing them on original hardware is so cool. Like it's nostalgic, and but it's like a piece of history almost. So these days, unless it's like readily available on Steam or Switch, like I'm gonna get it like on the original hardware. Although I guess, now that I'm thinking about it, now that you ask it, I picked up Xenogears recently. I managed to find it in store, and I was like, okay, sight unseen, like this is mine, because that's one of my favorite games of all time. But if I ever replay it, I'm not gonna play it on PS1. Like I'm gonna play it on the Vita, or I'm gonna play it on a handheld emulator so I could get the fast forward and the save states. Like I'm not gonna play that on PS1.
Now that you say that, it's on Vita.
Yes, you can get it on the PlayStation Store on Vita.
Okay.
Or if you hack your Vita, you could put it on there too.
Let me check, because I was playing on the Vita yesterday while I was supposed to be working. I don't know if I have that game. Because hearing you and a lot of all the other podcasters that we're friends with and that we talk to on a daily basis, a lot of them are like Xenogears. So, okay, I'm gonna buy that once we're done recording.
It is, yeah, it is a 90s JRPG if there ever was one. But if you like the Xenoblade games at all, you'll like these because it's the same writing team. Blanking Takahashi and his wife Kaori Tanaka, also known as Soraya Saga, is her pen name. They yeah, they just wrote it all. It's got mechs, so it's like Gundam. It's got like Neon Genesis Evangelion vibes. It's really cool. It's really cool. But there is a lot of like 90s JRPG PlayStation 1 BS that you have to put up with. Like the random encounters. Sometimes doors aren't always super noticeable, but if you can put up with that stuff, then it's an amazing game.
Okay, I'm definitely gonna download that once we're done here because I this year I want to check off a lot of boxes. Last year I checked off Donkey Kong Country, which
Oh yeah.
I had played but never finished. So that was a fun experience. So this year I just want to kind of continue that trend of checking off classics that I haven't finished. Because I pretty much played everything. I just have never finished most of the stuff that I start, which it's a curse.
I have a lot of blind spots in my JRPG catalog as well. I like Super Mario RPG is one that I've never played. Xenoblade, actually, the Xenoblade Chronicles, never played those. Suikoden, like just a lot of really big ones. And then games that aren't like that too. Like I've never finished a FromSoft game. I've started every Dark Souls game like twice, and every time I'm just like, this is not for me. But I'm determined. Like one day I'm going to finish a FromSoft game. I need to find the game that doesn't make me hate it.
That's probably going to be Bloodborne because that's everyone's favorite.
I've heard Bloodborne. I've heard Elden Ring. Those are the two big ones.
I did really get into Sekiro when it came out. I almost finished Sekiro. I don't know why I finished it. Probably because something else came along. But Sekiro is also a very good one because you don't have a stamina meter. You have a stance meter, which is basically for your parry. Parry, Parry. I'm not wording right.
Yeah, Perry, you got it.
So if you block too much, your stance breaks and they can one-shot you. But you can also do the same thing to the enemies that you're fighting, so the regular enemies or the bosses, which is great. I think it's a brilliant system. The Star Wars game that came out with the redhead from Shameless.
Oh yeah, Jedi Fallen Order.
That's Sekiro, but done not great.
I like that game okay. It was a bit of a buggy mess when I played it at launch though.
It was, but going back to it now, it's worth it, and I'm thinking about going back into it before the next one comes out. But I know that May is just going to be nothing but Star Wars for us, so I'm not gonna take on too much Star Wars and burn out.
You speaking of Keith from the main quest, he had a lot of problems with that game in terms of bugs. I think he said that he played it on his Series X, and yeah, he said that it was just glitching like crazy. So he didn't have a good experience with that one.
Really, that far into the game's life?
Yeah, dude, you should ask him about it. Somebody was asking in another server about purchasing it. And I was like, oh, yeah, it's okay. Keith, you should tell him about your experience. Because, I mean, if you're going to buy a game full price, you should know what you're getting into with that kind of shit.
Yeah, that's true. Hey, but if GameStop's still alive near where you live, then that's an option.
Yeah, they're still somehow kicking.
Yeah. Dude, we went to New York back in February, and there was a GameStop, massive GameStop, biggest GameStop I've ever seen. And we went into it and it was empty. They had like one shelf per current console and a few shelves for like action figures and shit. And the rest was empty. And I look around and I tell my wife, let's get the fuck out of here. Why are we in here?
When I was in grad school, I worked at GameStop for like a year and change. And man, like I'm not surprised at all. Like, that they're struggling the way that they are. The higher ups don't really give a shit about anything but money. Like that's why they're pushing so much merch. And for a long time, like and maybe even still, employees are like graded on not what they sell, but how much pre-owned shit they sell. So like if somebody came in and was like, I want to buy a PS5, oh, we only have them new. Oh, that's okay. And then they buy it new. Then that fucks up your whole percentages of like your sales and you get in trouble. And the only reason they do that is because GameStop makes more money selling pre-owned because they don't have to give any of the profit to the developers, to the distributors, and etc. I mean, it's it's pawn shop rules
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
It's pawn shop rules. I don't like GameStop. I had not a great experience, but I still pre-order from them like a big bozo. So
See, I when I worked there, the biggest thing that they had us push was the Power Up Rewards card.
oh, you work there too? Okay,
A long time ago.
I gotcha. Yeah, the power ups. Yeah, they were pretty big on that for a while for us too.
Yeah, so that was back then, but like I worked there, I left, I worked somewhere else, I left Puerto Rico, and then like a year after I left, the whole company shut down in Puerto Rico because they didn't want to put up with the new tax laws that they passed for companies. They're like, you know what?
Oh wow.
Fuck Puerto Rico, we're leaving. So they just fired everyone. No option to relocate, no severance packages, nothing.
Damn.
Yeah. Yeah, it was awful, dude. Oh. But yeah, no, I hate pre-ordering from GameStop. I found out that the local shop that I've always bought from since I moved here does pre-orders, and I just started pre-ordering this year, which a lot of fucking good that does me because we're moving at the end of this month. So
Oh, bummer.
yeah, so but at least I can buy from them online and have them shipped to me, so that's not going to be too bad.
Yeah, there you go. I really only pre-order from GameStop to get the Steelbook cases.
I'm still bummed that I didn't get Yakuza from GameStop. Like a Dragon, the Ishin new one, because that
Yeah.
that book Steelbook, it's really nice.
Yeah. Yeah, that is nice. That was the first one I pre-ordered from them in years. And then I put down like a $5 just to hold a pre-order for Final Fantasy 16. I'm not like super hopeful that I'm gonna love it, but it's Final Fantasy, so I gotta try it.
Yeah, I mean, I was very into 15 when it came out. I was really into it. Like I watched the entire anime and I put in so many hours, and then the end came, and like the final boss is one of those where their level is question mark, which means that it scales to whatever level you're on. I was like, this fucking sucks. Why am I why am I still playing this?
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't a huge fan of 15. Not really. It's actually, now that I'm thinking about it, it might be my least favorite in the series. I like 13 more than 15.
Really?
Actually, I don't like 13. Just to be clear. Just to be clear. But yeah. Geez, I guess I never thought about which is my least favorite. But to be fair, I haven't played 2, haven't played 3, haven't played, well, 11 doesn't count.
No.
So yeah,
Your favorite is 6, right?
my favorite is 9.
Oh, right, 9.
Yeah,
Okay.
but 6 and 10 are like always neck and neck for number 2.
Okay. I am not a fan of 10. I love the combat. I love the sphere grid, but everything else, oh, dude, it's like scratching nails on a chalkboard.
That's fair. Yeah.
And I feel like Xenoblade Chronicles, I did play through that whole game and finished it, and I like the stories, but the characters' designs felt like Final Fantasy X to me. So I was like put off by the character designs, but everything else I loved. Like the combat is so much fun. But I also don't like a lot of games that people absolutely love, and some games that people absolutely hate I adore, like Cyberpunk 2077. To me, that is the greatest open world game of all time, and
Oh wow.
and people hate it. So it's either I'm contrarian or I'm an idiot, one or the other.
Well, if you like the pre Final Fantasy X era, like the older games, you might like Xenogears because that's kind of done. It's not done by the same people because 7 was being worked on at the same time, but it's got some folks from Final Fantasy VI, a lot of the same team. So you might like that. You might like Xenogears.
Yeah, definitely. I'm definitely gonna get that. Now, I now that you bring that up, that era of games was it's kind of like being I don't want to say mirrored, but it's kind of like being repeated right now. Because back then, you had Saga, you had the Final Fantasy, you had Xenogears, you had all of those the Children of Mana games. You had all of those amazing JRPGs, and now we're kind of like seeing the same thing with Octopath, Tactics Ogre, Diofield Chronicles. Like I feel like Square is having an RPG renaissance all over again, and it's like they're throwing out a bunch of different projects that kind of feel the same, and some that are just completely experimental, like various Day Life.
Yeah, I can't speak to Diofield. I've heard mixed things, but I've never played it. I have heard that Octopath 2 is incredible. I'm hearing from folks that didn't like the first one that number 2 is just far and away much better. And from what I heard, you don't have to play the first one to like jump into the second one. So I'm very much looking forward to that. I miss the older JRPG days, like the classic quote unquote golden age of Square with Final Fantasy VI and Chrono Trigger.
Oh, Chrono Trigger.
Final Fantasy VII, Xenogears. Like I miss those days a lot. And the newer Final Fantasies, they've gone in a different direction to appeal to a younger demographic that doesn't like turn-based, that doesn't like, the kind of theater goofiness that's in Final Fantasy VI. And that's fine. Like, they're no longer appealing to my age demo. That's fine, whatever. But I still miss it. I still miss, like, Final Fantasy, like, having turn-based combat and, like, being stupid goofy but also serious at the same time. I don't know, I feel like an old man every time this subject comes up because I'm just like, wow, I miss the good old days. But I can't help it, man. They just put out so many great games in like a 10-year window.
Yeah, they did. But in good, the good thing for us is that we have companies like Atlas making Persona turn-based, and we have people that did what's it called? Dave covered it this week on his podcast.
Chained Echoes.
Yes, and the Star Children or whatever it's coming later in September. I forget the name of that game. It looks beautiful. It's kind of like a Chrono Trigger inspired game.
Oh yeah, and Mitsuda is composing for it, just like on Chrono Trigger. I know exactly what you're talking about. I also can't think of the name though.
Sea of Stars, Sky of the Stars, Star Ocean is something different.
Yeah.
Like at least we have other people doing what Square won't do, and they're delivering like very good stuff. Like I put around 90 hours in the original Persona 5, and then when R came out, I put in 125 hours. And I absolutely loved every second of it all over again.
I'm about to spoil a plot point for Persona 5, so if you're listening and don't want that, maybe fast forward. But I felt bad, like with the original, they kind of had to rewrite the ending because Igor's Japanese voice actor, or I don't remember if it was the Japanese or the American voice actor, but Igor's voice actor passed away. So they couldn't, record his lines, which is why his voice is different, which is why he's like the bad guy.
Right.
And I wonder, like, had he not died, like what the story would have been like, because I'm going to be honest, I didn't really like the Vanilla 5's ending. I thought the ending that Royal brought along was, well, I thought the Royal editions were the strongest in the entire game, but
what was the ending on the Vanilla 5?
So in 5, the ending was fighting, basically it was fighting God. I mean, you're fighting that, I don't remember the name, but Igor was actually like this god deity, and he was pulling the strings the whole time. And like that was the ending.
Right.
And they wrote that in because Igor's voice actor died. And I don't know. I wonder what it could have been had that not happened. Because it kind of comes out of nowhere, like halfway through the story, or like not even halfway, like 75% of the way through. Because up until that point, you're, adults are ruining the world, so we're taking care of them. And then that bald Howie Mandel looking guy is is basically a super corrupt politician, rich guy.
man.
And like all of those themes are working together. And then out of nowhere, it's like, oh, actually, we have to kill God now.
But it didn't
Like,
didn't Ford did kind of the same thing, like, oh, Adachi is the bad guy, and then have you played 4?
yes, I'm glad that I have.
Okay,
Because that would have been the biggest spoiler.
I assume that everybody knows everything. I gotta stop doing that shit. So like Adachi's the bad guy, and then after you beat him, you're like, oh, actually, the gas station attendant is the bad guy. So, like I it kind of like feels a little bit the same, but weird because of Igor. But I really did enjoy the ending to Royal more, because that fight against the school dude,
Maruki.
that was fun. Like they did so much stuff. They added so much stuff into the game that just it just like breath fresh air into an already great game. Man, like I don't,
Have you played Persona 3?
of course, love Persona 3.
Yeah, it's my favorite I haven't played 2 yet, but it's my favorite so far in the series. I thought they handled the very end with Nyx, like that kind of like quote unquote fight God. I thought they handled that perfectly because it tied into everything so well. Best boss battle in Persona, all of them by far, I think, is Nyx. It's such a good battle.
First off, thank you for saying that 3 is the best one, because I believe that wholeheartedly, and I'm afraid to say that is like the one gaming take that I'm afraid to say, because Persona fans are rabid.
Yeah.
That whole boss fight with Nyx was great because it makes you think on your feet the entire time, and it is a long boss fight too. That is yeah.
Yeah, not to mention that battle track is just epic.
Is that one Burn My Dread?
Yes.
Yes, that's so fucking good. Man, I really hope those rumors that 3 is getting a remake are true, because that
I was so bummed and kind of mad whenever Atlas was like, "Yeah, we're remastering Portable," because like my hot take with 3 is that Portable is an inferior version. Yes, it does control better because you can control your party members, but it takes away the entire overworld, which sucks, and it also takes away a lot of the cutscenes. And the way that the game is written, it's presented as a visual novel in Portable, but it's not written like a visual novel. You don't get any paragraphs that are just describing what's happening, which you get in books and visual novels. And because of that, I don't know. Like the presentation doesn't work with the story. So I've really been trying. Like if my friends are playing Portable because of the new releases, I'm always telling them like, hey, at least look up all of the animated cutscenes. Like you've got to, otherwise the story is gonna fall flat for you. And that's a shame because it's the best one in the series.
So now that you say that, if you take away having context from playing the original or FES, yeah, that does happen.
Some YouTubers said that Fez is the best way to play the game for the first time, and Portable is the best way to play the game if you've already know the story.
Yeah,
and I can see that.
Yeah.
I can see that.
Yeah, that is a good point. That is very true. Dude, glad to meet, not meet, to have somebody else just throw it out there that 3 is the best one. Probably have listener Burger Champ just being like, yeah, that's true, but Burger Champ, you didn't stick your neck out to say that.
Oh man, I'm gonna get to 2 one day, because there are a fair number of folks in the Persona subreddit that will say like, oh yeah, 2 has the best story by far, but pretty much everybody also says that 2 is the worst to play, like because it's not like a modern Persona game. And I tried about 30 minutes of it and I hated playing it, but I know the story is really good, so I don't know. I don't know if I'm gonna do like just watch a let's play or emulate it or what. All I know is I can't afford the original games because those sons of bitches are like $300 plus.
You can get them on Vita through the store.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I have them on Vita. I actually
Both of them?
let me tell you right now, because I do remember playing a lot of 2 on PSP, but it's also on Vita. Let me see. I think no, that's Breath of Fire. Let me see here. Come on. Okay. So P3P, that's not it. What the hell? Come on. Oh, okay. So Persona 2 Innocent Sin for the PSP is there, and Persona 2 Eternal Punishment is the PS1 version. It's also there. So you
I might
can
look into that.
you got both of them that you can play both stories. Because I remember 2 Innocent Sin being a thing, and then when they said, "Oh, Persona 2 Eternal Punishment is coming to the PlayStation Store," like they made a whole deal about it because it's the sequel to the original. They're like, "Oh, this is the only way to play it. Grab it, buy it now." Oh, and I did. So
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I know the basic plot of the game, or not the plot, but like I know the basic hook where it's like rumors are like important and become true. And then I also know that Hitler is in the game and you have to fight him,
so they
which I think is just so funny.
I got to I did see him, and I got to a part a little bit after that, and the part it has a bad RNG mechanic. And I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna fuck around with this shit anymore. I just stopped playing it. But maybe I should give it another try because it does have a good combat system. And getting the personas, you don't. It's not like Persona 3, 4, and 5. It's you have to convince them during the fight to join you. So like the other Shin Megami games. So it has a lot of Shin Megami blood in it, but it's starting to find its identity as Persona.
We talked about JRPG blind spots a little earlier. Shin Megami is another big one for me. Like, I own the 3 remake, or do I own the 3 remake? I don't think I do actually.
Nocturne?
I own not Persona 5. I own Shin Megami Tensei 5 on Switch, but I've never played any of them.
So, according to Burger Champ, those games are gameplay first, story second. So,
Yeah.
a lot of mechanics, a lot of difficult fights, lots of min maxing, weakness and strength exploitation, and there's story, but it takes a back seat. And I did play Nocturne on PS2 a long time ago, and that took me out because I am story first kind of guy. So that I think that's the reason why I didn't really enjoy it. I have 3 Nocturne, but probably never gonna play that either.
Yeah, the mechanic first, story second JRPGs. I mean, those exist. They work. Like Bravely Default 2 is one that I played a little bit of. I played a couple of hours of that last year. Very much mechanics first, and it's fun. It works. I mean, that's a really fun mechanic. So, yeah, I don't know. Do you know, is there a best Shin Megami game to start with?
Persona. Honestly, no idea, dude. Soul Hackers is technically Shin Megami. There's Soul Hackers 2. I think it's on everything now except for Switch. That is a very good one, and
Is that a game? Wait,
it's on Game
did that
Pass.
get ported to DS?
So there's Soul Hackers on the 3DS, and there's Soul Hackers 2 on current gen consoles.
Oh, okay. I've seen Soul Hackers 2 on Game Pass, I think.
Yeah. So that one, it when you're traveling the overworld, it does the weird Batman Arkham camera where it's like behind the character on the corner while they're running.
Yeah.
But the combat is solid. It's very good, and the story's interesting too. So I would say since it's in Game Pass, just try it out.
Okay. Yeah, cool. I'll definitely check that out.
If you want any other Shin Megami recommendations, I would say talk to Aaron because Aaron from Superpod apparently loves them.
Yeah, he's got a lot of deep cut JRPG opinions that I appreciate seeing.
Yeah, I got to get that dude and sit him down and just talk 3DS with him because I feel like we would go on for like 5 hours and not even scratch the surface of it.
That's a console. I just picked up a quote unquote new 2DS back in January because I knew that the eShop was going to close, and close it did. And I haven't really used it very much yet. I picked up I don't know how to say this, Theater Rhythm.
A theater rhythm.
Yeah, I picked that up a couple of days ago, but I haven't hacked my 2DS yet. I haven't done any of that. I need to get on it and actually do that.
So is it a 2DS or a new 2DS XL?
It's a new 2DS.
Nice. Okay,
Yeah.
That's, man. The only thing I don't like about the new 2DS is the stylus, but other than that, it's just so good.
Yeah, the hinge on this one's a little wobbly, but I mean, it's a used old console. What are you gonna do? You know?
Yeah. It sucks how high the price on these consoles and the games are going for. Like it seems like the kids that had it in middle school are starting to earn money and buying up all the games. Like
The retro market right now is ridiculous.
Oh, yeah.
It is insane.
Yeah, it's like the only console that you can actually collect for without breaking the bank is the 64.
The 360 too. I
Really?
think 360 is a pretty cheap one to collect for. Genesis. I mean, I see Genesis's like every week for $50. That's not so bad.
I've been meaning to get into Sega collecting, but man, I don't have space. Like I have my 64 and my GameCube like at my feet right now because not only we're packing, but I don't have anywhere to put them. So let's go back into the moon a little bit so we can wrap this up because we already hit an hour. Any final thoughts on the game?
I have a question for you.
Yes.
So, if you were presented the option for end of life care to have Dr. Neo and Dr. Ava go into your memories and fundamentally change how you remember your life happening, would you want them to do that?
Huh. Wow, that's a good one. It depends. Right now, at this point, if I were dying right now, no. I feel like up to this point, I've had a very good life. I haven't done everything that I've wanted, but I've done a lot to say that I'm happy. If it's when I'm old and my wife is dead and my dog is dead, then maybe make it so that they're alive in my memory before I die. Other than that, I'm good. What about you?
I'm conflicted because like I mean, this ties into religious beliefs, which we don't need to get into that. We don't have that kind of time. But like, you know, once you're dead, if you don't believe in an afterlife, then that's it. Like, it doesn't matter what you thought as you were dying. You're dead. You just don't exist. So in one hand, it doesn't matter. So like, why would you say no? Right? Like, have comfort in those final moments. But the part of me that's alive right now and conscious right now feels like that's a problem because like all that's doing is tricking you, right? It's a trick. It's a big trick, and I don't know if I would want that.
It is a big trick. But also, what if you're at a point where you hate how things unfolded so badly that you know what you should have done to make things better, and you don't want to die with that guilt, and you want to feel better about the actions and know and make it so that you remember it, that you did the right thing after the fact. I don't know if I'm wording that correctly.
Yeah, no, you are. I mean, in those circumstances, I could see it, but I'm not in that. So I'm not, so it doesn't matter to me. I don't know, man. Like that was ultimately like, yes, the story is very sad. It's very bittersweet. It's also very happy in some ways, but after the game was over, like next week, what I found myself thinking was like, would I do that? I don't know.
No, that is one of those questions like what is the meaning of life? It's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
to think, dude, that a 4 hour pixel art game made me think more about life than Last of Us or Bioshock or any of those uh, games that question morality and life and shit.
Yeah, dude, I can't remember who suggested it to me. I can't remember if it was Dave or if it was Poppy the Keaton from the Secret Levels Discord. I don't remember, but whoever suggested it to me, I'm glad that they did because I loved it.
Yeah, it was pretty great. The Golden Gate Bridge in Orlando, Florida is just it's worth the play just to see the fucking bridge in Florida. But yeah, no, I think the only complaints that I had about this game were just finding the colored orbs. They were, and the conversations they were. I did a lot of clicking, and that kind of felt annoying. To me, whenever that happens, it kind of feels like artificial padding, even if it's just me being terrible at playing games. So to me, man, this game is a 9 out of 10.
That's fair. I'm right there with you.
9 out of 10 as well.
Yep.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's worth the playthrough. I mean, like Rick said, recommend the game wholeheartedly. If you want a sad story, if you want a weird story that makes you question morals and stuff, this is it. So yeah, Rick, I need you now to plug your stuff. Tell us everything that you're doing with your podcast. Tell us where to find you. I need all the details, and then we're gonna gush a little bit about your Final Fantasy VI series that I am loving so fucking much.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. So I'm the host of Pixel Project Radio. It's I mean, the term video game club or video game book club is thrown around a lot, but that's also what we do. So we typically, I'm going to change up the formula a little bit here in the coming weeks, but once a month we play a game and we will talk through each and every story beat like as it happens, just like you would at a book club. That's not to say we only post once a month, we post more, but as we move forward, not every episode is going to be that kind of beat by beat plot point because I have a full-time job and it's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work.
We also do topic episodes. We just do general game retrospectives like we've done today here. And it's been a lot of fun. Right now we are doing Final Fantasy VI, like you said, with Chris Copleen from the Retro Hangover podcast, another amazing show that I recommend everyone check out. Coming up next, the next episode that's going to be put out is Death's Door, which is like a little roguelike. I don't know the difference, but it's on Game Pass. It's a lot of fun. It's neat. So yeah, if you check us out and if you like what you see, then come on over to our Discord or to our socials. We'd love to have you.
So I am gonna hop off of that, and a lot of people say that a lot of podcasts say that they're book clubs for games. Like, I feel like mine is a book club for games, but it's just, this was so good, this was so good, this sucked, this was so good. Yours is like actual discussing the story, going step by step, and when something important happens, you break it down with your guest. And that is what I love so much about this Final Fantasy 6 series that you're doing. Because I played Final Fantasy 6, I've never beaten it, but there are so many story beats that I remember, and you guys breaking it down and giving your insight on the characters and the situation and everything just makes it, I want to say, not feel alive. It feels, it gives it a deeper level of understanding to me, and I absolutely love that.
I appreciate that very much. And the reason that I decided on that format in the beginning was because that's what I like listening to, right? The Watch Out for Fireballs and Resonant Arc are two of my favorite shows of all time, and they do the same thing. It's just like when I love a video game, I I like hearing people talk about it beat by beat. There are shows that can just do a generalized discussion and just be like, "Oh, I loved it. Oh, I didn't like this. Oh, I love that." But those shows, like, to succeed at those, you need to be really charismatic and funny, which I don't feel like I am a lot of the time. I'm good at the analyzing, and like I'm funny sometimes, but like so yeah, that's I'm being a little bit facetious here, but that is why we do that format. Is because I don't want to make a podcast that I wouldn't listen to at the end of the day.
Right.
So and this format is I love it. I think it's great.
It works very well. Like there's one scene that stands out to me, and it's that you guys broke down, and it's when the party sees Locke's girlfriend's body,
Yeah.
and the whole scene happens, and at the end the party leaves, but Celeste stays behind, and she says, "Locke." That you guys breaking that down, I was like, "Oh shit, that makes sense." that oh
And that game works so well for this format too, because like some games wouldn't. Like you can't really do this kind of format with a Kirby game, right?
Are
Or
you
Pokemon.
sure? Have you tried?
Well, no, and I actually haven't played the newest Kirby. So, like, if I'm wrong, that's fine. Just tell me. Actually, don't tell me. I don't care.
King DDD stole Kirby's strawberry shortcake. Are you sure you can't do the same?
What is the strawberry shortcake a metaphor for?
Right?
But,
why does Kirby destroy the universe before getting it back?
But like nobody, it's 2023. Like nobody is debating seriously anymore whether or not video games are art. Like that's a very like 2015 debate to be had. They are at full stop. But what's cool about these games like 6 and really all the Final Fantasies and Xenogears, Chrono Trigger, all of them, is that they have such good writing, and it lends itself to a book club format.
Yeah.
That's the whole point. Like you couldn't do a book club format about Fortnite. And Fortnite's a good game. It's just can't do a book club about it. You know?
I mean, Get Played, when they covered Fortnite, they did somewhat of a study on it, but it was more on the meta aspects of the game, which I guess you can do that with every single game, but not as in story-wise.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not throwing shade to anybody that's covered Fortnite. Yeah, and again, Fortnite's a good game. It's just like, you know, Fortnite doesn't really have a story, so you can't talk about it like this. Whereas Final Fantasy 6 is story forward. Persona 5 is story forward.
Yep.
And it makes it easy to talk about like it's a book.
Yep.
And that's pretty cool.
You brought up Chrono Trigger. I played Chrono Trigger for the first time last year, and I absolutely loved it. My biggest criticism about the game is that if you don't take specific characters to specific events, you're not going to get that part of the story or any context for that. Where with Final Fantasy VI, you do. No matter who's in your party, you still get the story, but you don't get is the name attached to the whatever.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, if you don't have Locke in your party when you go to Rachel's the place where Rachel is, you don't get that scene. So there are missables like that, and I think that's a game design mindset from the past when people didn't have as many games as we have today.
Mm-hmm.
So you were replaying the same games a lot. I understand it completely. Chrono Trigger. The biggest thing with me with that is Luca's whole backstory with her mom, with her parents, and the campfire scene. Those are totally missable and optional, and they're two of the best scenes in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what? Why would you do that?
Yeah, Luca's mom lost her legs on my playthrough. I fucked that up so bad.
Man, she has such a great backstory, and they hide it behind those missable scenes. It's a bummer a little bit, but the reality is it's 2023. If you're going to play the game, you probably have a walkthrough, so you probably won't miss it. I'm not afraid to say I use a walkthrough for every JRPG I play.
Of course.
Because I don't want to miss anything. I don't use it to like figure out like where every single item is, or like I just skim it to see like, am I going to miss something? Yes? Okay. Well, I have to make sure I do that. But yeah, you just use a walkthrough with Chrono Trigger. It's fine.
See, I am a little bit spoiled by the Tales of series because the Tales of series, you have your 4 characters that you have fighting, and the rest of the characters are on reserve. So anytime that they're still quote unquote in your party on reserve or fighting, whenever a story beat happens, everybody's there. So going from that into Chrono Trigger was kind of like, you're not getting story.
Yeah. I've never played. You said, I'm sorry, you said the Tales of games?
Yeah, the Tales of series.
Okay. I was like, did you say Tales of or Trails of? Because I know those are 2 different things. But I've never played either of them. I played a bit of Tales of Berseria, and I loved everything about it except the combat. So I'm gonna give it another shot, maybe this year. I've heard nothing but good things about Tales of games. To be honest,
Since you have a 2DS, I would say get Abyss if you can find it for a decent price. That is my favorite Tales of. It's also I'm blanking. Bill's from Gaming and Collecting's favorite Tales of. That is a very good one to start with. The combat is very beat 'em up in that game. It's not as different as it is with Berseria. Or if you just want to go into Tales of Arise, that is a very good one to play as the first one too.
I just looked up on price charting. It looks like Tales of Abyss is going to be somewhere between $50 to $70, depending on whether it's CIB or just loose. It must be good, or at the very least rare if it's that expensive.
Yeah, it's very good. I played that game when I was in high school, and when I played it, it was one of the darkest stories that I had played up to that point, and there was a lot of character growth with pretty much every single character. And even though there are some characters whose traits they play off as funny, the reason why they are that way, it's very, very dark. It's very good. It's very, very good game. It's all animal bullshit, which is awesome.
All right, recommendation noted. I will keep an eye out for it.
Or hey, if you hack it, you can get it that way too.
That is true. That's probably, I mean, Persona 2, Tales of Abyss. That's how I'm going to play these super expensive games until I, can save the money to fucking buy them.
But hey, Rick, it's been awesome. Just everybody, if you're listening to this, just once you're done, go to Pixel Project Radio, wherever you get your podcast, and listen to the Final Fantasy series, Final Fantasy VI series that he's done. I swear on my life that it is the most entertaining 2 hours each episode that you're going to have, especially if you love Final Fantasy VI. It just gives you the warmth and fuzzies while you're slaving away at the capitalist grind machine that we all live in.
All right, I can tell by that last bit there that you have listened to the show before.
Dude, like I tell you, like I'm imaging computers most of the time because I work in IT, so I'm just like sitting there like tapping buttons, making sure that these computers are done the right way. And it is such a fucking boring task that I just sit there and I just listen to podcasts all day, and it's just like, yeah, it's relief. No.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I work in technical support sort of as well, and yeah, podcasts have got to be going. Otherwise, it's mind numbing.
Oh yeah, no, it's a life. Well, everybody, thank you for subscribing to Patreon. Thank you for listening. If you're listening to this on regular feed, again, thank you for listening. Make sure you share, like, subscribe, whatever. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to all of Rick's stuff. It's great stuff, and I'm sure he has more awesome things coming throughout the rest of the year. Again, 100% recommend his show. And that's it for today. Anything else you want to say before we end, Rick?
No, just thank you for having me. It was a blast, and I'm really glad that you thought enough of me and the show to ask me to come on. So thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Oh, of course, man. Anytime you want to come on, you're more than welcome to. And that's it. You want to say goodbye, Rick?
Goodbye, Rick.
Goodbye, everyone.